My dear child, the very thing they designed to be your ending was never going to work. Not because the attack was not real, not because the pain did not land the way they intended it to, not because you were somehow untouchable and the blows glanced off without effect. They landed. Some of them went deep, but the fact that you are here, the fact that you are breathing and receiving and listening, is the evidence that what lives inside you is not something that their plans were ever equipped to destroy. Your victory will be so complete, you will forget the name of the pain. That is not a comfort phrase. That is not something spoken to get you through a hard moment and forgotten by the time the moment passes. That is a declaration from the only one who has ever held the full, unedited weight of your story in his hands and still said, without hesitation, without qualification, "This one overcomes." Think about what it actually means to forget the name of the pain. Not just to survive it, not just to carry it well enough that it does not completely stop you. Not the kind of moving on that is really just very successful avoidance of a wound that is still very much open. I am talking about a healing so complete, a restoration so thorough and so deep, that the thing which once had the power to stop you in the middle of an otherwise ordinary moment, the thing that came rushing back uninvited at the sound of a song or a word, or a familiar smell or nothing at all, will one day have no more claim on you than a story you once heard about someone else. You will tell it, but you will not feel it anymore. The emotional charge will have been removed from it entirely, not because you learned to suppress it better, not because time created enough distance that the sharpness dulled into something manageable, but because I reached into the place where that wound lived, and I removed it by its root. That is what I do for the ones I love, and you are one of the ones I love. Not one of many in a way that dilutes what that means. One of the ones I love in the way that a good parent loves each child completely, not dividing the love between them so that each gets a fraction. Each one receives the whole of it. That is the mathematics of the kind of love I carry. It does not operate on scarcity. What I give to you does not reduce what is available for anyone else. And so the love directed at you specifically, the attention, the care, the active work toward your good, is complete and full and entirely without reservation. Let that stay with you for a moment before we move forward. Not as a general sentiment about my disposition toward humanity, as a specific statement directed at you, at the particular history you carry, at the version of you that exists right now in this exact moment with everything you are holding. I love you, not despite the complicated parts, not in spite of the seasons when you were not at your best, not provisionally, contingent on what happens next, completely, presently, with full awareness of everything I am aware of about you, which is everything there is to be aware of, and with no reservation. You trusted in empty promises. You put the weight of your heart into hands that were not strong enough to hold it. And I want to spend some time here because a crash of that kind of disappointment is not a simple sadness. Disillusionment has a very specific quality. It is not the grief of losing something good. It is the grief of discovering that the goodness you believed in was not there. The thing you leaned on turns out to have been hollow at the center. The promises that sounded solid dissolve when the moment arrives that they were supposed to hold. And when that happens, when you find out that what felt like foundation was just a surface that looked like foundation, something shifts in you at a level that is very hard to describe. You do not just stop trusting the person or the institution or the relationship that failed you. You begin to wonder whether trust itself is a kind of foolishness, whether hope is something that wise people learn to stop extending, whether the very capacity to believe in what has not yet happened is a vulnerability you can no longer afford. I watched it happen to you. I know the exact moment when the thing that was supposed to hold you did not hold. And I know what it cost you. Not in vague general terms, specifically. Down to the quality of the silence in the room afterward. Down to the way the world looked different when you walked out of that experience than it had looked when you walked in. Down to the version of you that emerged from that disappointment, who was measurably smaller in some ways than the version that went in, who had recalibrated what was possible downward in response to what had happened. I know all of it, not because I have been collecting data about your life, because I was there. My presence surrounding you was constant, even in the moments when I felt most absent to you. I never left your side, even when the circumstances made it impossible for you to feel me there. And this matters because the trap of that kind of disillusionment is that it revises your understanding of what love is capable of. You experienced human love failing. You experienced human promises breaking. You experienced human hands letting go when you needed them to hold. And without intending to, you began to interpret those experiences as evidence about what all love is like, what all promises do, what all hands eventually do. The experiences were real. The conclusions they seemed to point toward were wrong. Because I am not a human. My hands are not human hands. My promises are not made of the same material as the promises that broke. My love is not subject to the same pressures and limitations and failures that human love is subject to. And learning to receive what I offer without filtering it through the lens of what human love has done requires a shift in understanding that I am actively working to bring about in you right now. Your enemies had decided to make an end of you. That is not an exaggeration or a dramatic interpretation. There were people in your story who looked at your life and made a deliberate choice. They sat with the decision and they committed to it. The goal was to strip away your dignity, to close every door, to fill the space around you with shame until you accepted the diminished version of yourself as the true version. They wanted you to take on the label they were assigning you and stop fighting it. They wanted the internal capitulation, not just the external compliance, but the actual surrender of your sense of who you are and what you are worth. Because as long as you believed in your own worth, as long as you held on to any sense that the assessment they were giving you was false, you remained a kind of resistance to them. And they wanted to eliminate that resistance entirely. And for a time, some of it worked. I am not going to minimize that. Some of the shame they pressed into you went in. Some of the lies they told about your value landed and took root in parts of you that were built to hold something entirely different. The marks were real. The confusion was real. The period of genuinely not knowing what was true about yourself was real. None of that needs to be minimized or moved past too quickly in order to get to the good part. The pain was real. The confusion was real. The damage was real. But here is what else is real. They could not finish the job. Stop and sit with that for a moment. Not as a platitude, as a fact. The entire coordinated effort to make an end of you did not succeed. The people who committed to seeing you broken are looking at someone who is still standing. And that is not because you are uncommonly resilient. It is not because you are stronger than the average person. It is because they were working against something they fundamentally did not understand. They measured you by what they could see, and they did not have access to what they could not see, which was the source. They could not calculate for me. And because they could not account for my hand in your life, every calculation they made about the likely outcome was based on incomplete information. The math was wrong from the beginning because they left out the most important variable. You are more valuable than the entire universe. I want to explain this rather than just assert it. The universe is vast. the universe contains structures and phenomena and forces of such staggering scale and complexity that human minds are genuinely unable to hold the whole picture at once. The nearest star beyond our own is roughly 25 trillion miles away, and what we can see is only a fraction of what exists. I made all of it. I spoke it into being, and I maintain it by my word. The universe is extraordinary, but the universe is not capable of receiving me. The universe cannot hear my voice and respond. The universe cannot choose. The universe cannot love. The universe cannot trust. It can only do what it was built to do. And what it was built to do is magnificent, but it is not personal. You are personal. You were made for relationship with me. You were made with the capacity to hear my voice and recognize it, to receive what I offer and respond, to trust what cannot yet be seen, to love without guarantee of return. These capacities do not exist in the physical cosmos. They exist in you, and the things that exist in you that do not exist anywhere else in the material universe make you worth more than the material universe. So when your enemies used the scale of the universe to make you feel small and irrelevant, they were working with the math backwards. The comparison works in the other direction. The mountains are magnificent, but they cannot know me. The oceans are powerful, but they cannot choose me. The stars are ancient, but they cannot trust me. You can. You are doing it right now. Your victory will be so complete, you will forget the name of the pain. Hold on to that. Let it go down into the places that are still raw and still waiting for something to be true enough to hold on to. There is something I want you to understand about how this kind of healing works. It does not function like the healing of a bone, where the break happens, time passes, and eventually the place that was broken is simply solid again. What I do goes beyond the physical analogy. When a bone heals, it is healed, but the body knows where the break was. The X-ray remembers. The structure at that site is slightly different than the surrounding tissue. But what I do with the places that were broken in, you does not leave that kind of residue. Not because I am performing some kind of spiritual amnesia that robs you of your history, but because the restoration I bring regenerates what was there before the break with the original material, at the original density. The result is indistinguishable from what existed before the damage. Not almost the same, the same. You are not going to walk forward as a healed, broken thing. You are going to walk forward as someone whose original design has been fully realized, as though the damage had been the very path toward it, rather than the detour from it. This is the part of my nature that surprises people most, that I can use damage, that I can work within the territory of what was meant to harm and produce from it something that serves the very purpose the harm was trying to prevent. Not because I sent the harm, not because difficulty is my preferred tool of formation, but because nothing that enters your story enters beyond my reach. Nothing that happens to you happens outside of the sphere where I am able to work. And when I work, I do not settle for merely repairing to previous condition. I move toward the intended destination, which was always greater than the previous condition, and the path, even when it runs through damage, ends in that place. I want to rebuild your dreams, not the ones that others told you that you were allowed to want, not the narrowed-down version of your hopes that you arrived at after enough disappointments had done their work of revision, not the careful, risk-managed, expectation-lowered goals of someone who has learned to protect themselves from the full force of hoping for something large. The original dreams, the ones that were there before the world got its hands on you and started editing. The ones I placed in the architecture of your heart before you were born, before you had any capacity to evaluate whether they were realistic. before realism had even become a concept available to you. Those dreams, the ones that feel too large now, the ones you sometimes remember and then set aside quickly because sitting with them too long feels more painful than just letting them go, are still there, compressed, but intact, because I put them there, and no one who worked against you ever had access to what I placed at the deepest center of who you are. The reconstruction I am undertaking in your life is not repair work. That distinction matters. Repair work takes the damaged original and does the best it can to restore it to its previous condition. What I am doing is not that. What I am doing starts from the same original blueprint that existed before any of the damage occurred, but the result is not a return to the pre-damaged state. It is the arrival at the intended state, which was always more than what existed before things went wrong. The broken version of your dreams, the things that fell apart, the plans that did not hold, were approximations, working models. What I am working toward is the real thing, the full thing, the thing that was always the actual destination, and which the approximations were pointing toward, even when they failed. I want to take you to heights you did not expect to see. Think about what it means to be taken somewhere unexpected. Not just somewhere you did not plan to go. Somewhere you actively did not believe you would ever go. The ceiling you have in your imagination about what your life can be is lower than mine. Significantly lower. Because you built it in response to evidence from your history, evidence of what happened when things did not work out, evidence of what other people told you was possible for someone with your background and your circumstances and your particular collection of limitations. And all of that evidence is real, but it is not complete. It is missing the most important piece. It is missing what I am capable of doing through someone who keeps trusting me in exactly the kind of seasons you have been in. The picture I have of your future is not the picture you would draw if you were trying to be realistic. I am not asking you to be realistic. I am asking you to be faithful, because faithfulness opens access to dimensions of what I can do that realism permanently excludes. The invitation is to open your wings, not to start flapping and hope for the best, but to receive the wind that I am sending specifically in the direction of where I am taking you, and to trust that the lift is real even before you can feel it. Let me stay with this image for a moment because it is important. An eagle does not generate the altitude that makes it capable of seeing what it sees and going where it goes through the intensity of its own physical effort. It finds a thermal, a column of rising warm air, and it opens its wings into that column and it rises. The rising is real. The altitude is real. The view from up there is real. But the eagle did not produce it by effort alone. It found the current and it opened into it. And what I am telling you is that there is a current available to you right now. A movement in the spiritual atmosphere that is specifically directed toward carrying you to the place I have prepared. The invitation is to open into it, to stop managing your altitude through sheer effort and control and the careful application of your own limited capacity, and to extend your wings into what I am already moving in your direction. Something else about the heights I am describing. When I say I want to take you to places you did not expect to see, I am not describing an experience you will have alone. The altitude I am inviting you into is shared altitude. I am going with you, not sending you in the direction of something good and waiting to see how you do. Moving with you. Being the wind under your wings, yes, but also being the companion on the journey, the one who knows what you are seeing and can speak to you about it as you see it. Because the relationship between us is not a transaction where I dispense blessings from a distance and then evaluate how well you receive them. It is a living, ongoing, intimate exchange between a father and a child who are genuinely in each other's company. And the company I keep with you does not diminish at the higher altitudes. It deepens. Because the things you encounter in the elevated places, the challenges that come with the fuller life I am taking you into, the responsibilities that attach to the greater level of fruitfulness I have planned for you, those things are navigated best in close communion with me. The higher you go, the more you will feel the need for the conversation. And the need itself is part of the gift. Your enemies came with a specific and coordinated assignment. The goal was not just to cause pain, though pain was certainly part of the mechanism. The goal was elimination, the dismantling of the person you were before the attack, and the replacement of them with someone whose sense of worth had been so thoroughly demolished that recovery was no longer possible. Every act of shame, every withheld opportunity, every attempt to drag your dignity into places where it would be handled carelessly and reduced and discarded was a calculated move in service of that goal. And I need you to understand the full significance of what happened when the goal failed. Because when I say they could not finish the job, I am not saying you escaped through luck or through some personal quality of resilience that simply happened to be strong enough. I am saying they ran into me. Every stone thrown in your direction passed through my field before it reached you. And the ones that did reach you, the ones that did cause genuine damage, did not reach the essential thing, the part that belongs to me, the part that carries the signature of what I placed in you before you existed. That part was not available to them. They never had access to it. Not because you were protecting it cleverly enough, because I was. Now, I want to speak to the marks that are still present, the residue of what was pressed into you with intention, the shame that settled into places built for something else, the rancor that took up residence in spaces that were supposed to be filled with peace. Not to dwell there, not to turn over every detail of how each mark was made, but to say clearly that the process of their removal has already begun. Not just the visible damage, not just the parts you are aware of that need work. Everything, down to the layers you have not yet identified, down to the ways the damage shaped your behavior and your expectations and your sense of what is possible without you ever fully realizing the connection. I am working at that depth, and when I am finished, the work will be complete. Not approximate, not mostly done. Complete. The marks will not remain. This is a promise I am making to you today, with full weight behind it. Not because you will pretend they were not there, not because you will construct a narrative that denies what happened, but because what I bring to the places of damage is not just repair, it is replacement. The space that was occupied by shame will be occupied by dignity. The space that was occupied by rancor will be occupied by peace. The space that was occupied by confusion about your own worth will be occupied by a settled, unshakable understanding of your value that does not depend on being confirmed by anyone outside of me. That is the transformation. That is what is underway. Faith has a role in this, not faith as the performance of certainty you do not feel, not faith as the suppression of honest doubt, but faith as the decision, made repeatedly and consciously, to act on what I have said rather than on what the circumstances appear to be saying. And the more consistently that decision is made, the more the internal landscape shifts, not all at once, in layers, like light coming into a room that has been dark for a long time. At first, it is just the faint outline of things. Then gradually the details emerge, and eventually the room is fully lit, and you cannot remember, not in an emotional sense, not in a feeling sense, what it was like when everything was in the dark. And I want you to understand something about the specific faith that is required right now, in this season, in the territory you are currently in. The faith being asked of you is not the faith of someone at the beginning of a journey who has not yet encountered significant resistance. That faith is real, but it is relatively uncomplicated. What is being asked of you now is the faith of someone who has encountered the resistance, who has felt the force of it, who has been shaken by it, and who chooses to keep moving forward anyway. That is a different quality of faith, and it is the quality that produces the specific kind of result I am describing. The testimony that comes from that faith is not the testimony of someone who found it easy. It is the testimony of someone who found it hard and kept going and discovered at the far side of the difficulty that what they had been trusting was exactly as trustworthy as they had been choosing to believe. That testimony reaches places that the easy version cannot reach. The problems you see right now are not evidence that the process has stalled. They are not evidence that my promise is delayed, or that the obstacles are stronger than what I said. The problems you see are the sound of something that has been losing its grip on you and knows it. When a hand that has been holding something tightly is finally forced to let go, the release is not quiet. There is noise in it. There is resistance in the final stages of letting go that can feel more intense than the resistance at the beginning. And what you are sometimes experiencing as the intensification of the opposition is actually the sign that ground is being gained. The desperation in what is working against you is the signal that the territory is changing in your favor. Your faith must remain firm, not because I am requiring a performance of unwavering positivity, but because faith is the mechanism by which you stay connected to what is actually happening at the level that matters most. Doubt does not make the process stop, but doubt does make you less able to navigate within it. It makes you more susceptible to the misinterpretation of the resistance as evidence of failure. It makes the waiting harder than it needs to be, and it distances you from the supply of peace that is available to you right now, regardless of circumstances. The peace that passes, the kind of understanding that would need circumstances to be resolved before it could exist. So make the decision to believe, not once as a declaration that has to hold indefinitely under all conditions, repeatedly. Every time the doubt surfaces, make it again. Every time the circumstances seem to be arguing against what I have said, make it again. Every time someone in your environment says something that sounds like confirmation of the worst case, make it again. The decision to believe is not a feeling. It is an act of the will. And the repeated exercise of that act of the will is itself part of what is reshaping you from the inside. I do not give you stones when you ask for bread. I want to be very direct about my character here. There is a version of theology that casts me as a God who gives difficulty primarily, who uses hardship as the main tool of formation, who is more interested in testing than in providing. That is not who I am. I am a father. When a child comes to a good father hungry and asks for something to eat, the good father does not give them something that will hurt them. The good father reaches toward the best thing he has available and gives it to the child. That is the disposition I have toward you. Every single time you have come to me with need, my first instinct has been to give you the good thing, not the hard lesson, not the disciplinary response, the good thing. And when the path has been difficult, when the things you asked for did not come in the form or the timing you expected, it has not been because I changed my mind about what I want for you. It has been because what I want for you is so specifically good, so exactly right, so precisely fitted to who you are and where you are going, that the delivery sometimes requires a path that does not look like the most direct route to what you asked for. The gift I am preparing for you is not a lesser version of what you hoped for. It is the actual thing. And the actual thing sometimes takes longer to arrive because more is being put together in its preparation than you can see from where you are standing. Think about the father who loves his child. This father is not sitting in a back room somewhere thinking about what difficulty to introduce next. He is thinking about the child's future. He is thinking about the obstacles ahead that he can already see, and the child cannot yet see. He is thinking about which relationships will matter and which ones will not, and how to position the child to encounter the right ones at the right time. He is thinking about the open doors, the ones that require arriving in a particular state of readiness that the child has not yet achieved. He is working actively toward all of it, not as an engineer who cares only about the outcome and ignores the person in the process, as a father who cares about both the destination and what happens to the child along the journey. And he is working toward the best possible version of both. I am that father. I am thinking about your future with the full scope of what I know, which is everything there is to know, and with the full force of what I want for you, which is good things, not punishment, not arbitrary seasons of suffering to teach arbitrary lessons. A real path toward a real destination that is genuinely good, genuinely prepared, genuinely meant for you specifically. And I want to say one more thing about this, because the version of me that many people carry in their minds is a version that is primarily concerned with correcting behavior, that responds to human failure primarily with disappointment or with disciplinary measure, that keeps a kind of cosmic ledger where the offenses are tallied against the obedience. That is not the accurate picture. The accurate picture is of a father who delights in the child, not grudgingly, not in spite of the child's imperfections, with genuine, wholehearted, overflowing delight. The kind of delight that looks at the child in the middle of an ordinary day, not during a moment of remarkable behavior, just during a regular moment of living, and finds that what is seen is simply good, worthy of celebration, worth the whole of what was poured into creating it. That is how I look at you. Not when you have earned it, in the middle of the ordinary, with everything visible, with full knowledge of every failure and every limitation, and every moment you were less than what you intended to be, still with delight, still with the certainty that what is here in front of me, in you, is exactly what I meant to make, and it is very good. Many people have spent seasons being angry with me. They have shouted into the air and accused me of things I did not do and indifference I did not feel. And still I love them. Still I wake them each day. Still I give them breath and thought and the capacity to choose. The anger does not make me angry back. The accusation does not make me defensive. The distance they put between themselves and me does not make me move away. I love them the same from the far side of their anger that I love them when they are close, because my love is not reactive. It is not a response to what is brought to me. It is the fixed thing, the thing that was true before they were born and will be true after every circumstance of their lives has changed and faded. But those who remain close, those who choose to maintain connection with me through the difficult seasons rather than letting the difficulty create distance, they receive access to something that those who have moved away cannot access from where they are. Not because I withhold it from them out of punishment, but because some things require proximity to receive. The warmth of a fire is real, but it is only available to those who have not walked to the far edge of the room. The protection I offer is real, but it is most effectively received by those who are walking close enough to be within the active sphere of what I am doing. And you are close. You are here. You have maintained the connection through things that would have pushed many people away. That has not gone unnoticed. There is a roaring adversary who moves through the world looking for the ones he can consume. And I want to be honest with you about this, rather than offering you a version of spiritual reality that ignores the genuine nature of the opposition you face. The adversary is real. His strategies are coordinated and intentional. He is not working randomly. He is looking for the ones who have let me out of their active awareness. Not because my protection stops operating, but because the armor of faith functions best when it is being consciously worn. And the ones who have moved to the periphery of connection with me have also moved to the periphery of the protection that connection provides. But this is not your situation. You are surrounded always by my favor and my mercy. Not sometimes. Not on the days when your faith feels strong. Always. Because my favor and my mercy are not contingent on the quality of your faith on a given day. They are contingent on who I am, and I do not change. And what this means for you in practical terms is that the adversary who moves through your environment looking for an opening does not find one in you. Not because you are doing everything perfectly. Not because your faith is flawless. Because you are covered by something that is not yours to maintain. My protection over your life is not a reward for your performance. It is a gift that came with your belonging to me. Let me be specific about what happens when the forces aligned against your life encounter what I have placed around it. The opposition is not without power. I do not want to give you a version of spiritual reality that minimizes the genuine nature of what you have faced. The campaigns against you were real. The methods were refined and intentional. The pressure was genuine. But here is what every campaign against one of mine eventually discovers. The domain where it is operating is not one where it holds final authority. The adversary can create noise in that domain. He can work through circumstances and relationships and the ordinary mechanisms of a broken world to produce confusion and fear and the appearance of irreversible loss. But he cannot revise the conclusion, because the conclusion belongs to me, and what I have declared does not yield to his revision. The fire that meets what comes against you in genuine malice is not something you generate by working up sufficient spiritual resolve. It is the fire of my jealousy for what belongs to me. And when that fire engages what has been working against you, the engagement is not uncertain. The adversary who calculated his approach based on your apparent strength alone discovers that he is dealing with the one who knows his methods completely and has arranged the defeat of this campaign from before it began. What was intended to mark you as permanently defeated becomes, in my hands, the ground of the testimony that demonstrates my faithfulness. Your victory will be so complete, you will forget the name of the pain. I want to say this again here, at this point in the conversation, because I want you to feel what it means in light of everything we have just talked about. The enemies who worked against you, the pain they introduced, the marks they tried to press in permanently, the campaigns of shame and dismissal and withheld opportunity, all of that is on the losing side of this. All of it. And the victory that is coming is not the cautious kind, not the just barely better kind, not the technically I won, but I still know exactly where every blow landed kind. It is the complete kind. The kind where the fullness of what I bring to your life is so present and so real and so overwhelming in its goodness that the memory of the pain recedes until it has no more emotional hold on you than a page from a history book about something that happened in a country you have never been to. Receive my blessing. This is an act, not a feeling. It requires something of you, which is the lowering of the defenses that disappointment built. The walls that went up after the empty promises broke. Those walls were not malicious constructions. They made sense. They were protection. But protection built against human failure, against the specific pattern of people promising and not delivering, protection that made sense in relation to human love, cannot serve the same function in relation to me. Because what I offer is not the same thing filtered through a better version of the human pattern. It is fundamentally different in kind. and to receive it requires being willing to lower the protection that was built in response to something else. Let the blessing in. Let it fill the places that have been empty, the places that have been waiting, maybe not consciously, for something trustworthy enough to fill them with. I am trustworthy enough. I am specifically the answer to the question that those empty places have been waiting to have answered, and I am offering to fill them now. The blessing I am releasing over your life is not a single event. It is a season, and seasons have characteristics that a single event does not have. They have duration. They build on themselves. Each day within the season is its own expression of the larger movement, and each expression adds to what is accumulating. So the blessing that is coming is not a moment you will experience and then return from. It is the new quality of your life, the new normal, what your days look like from the inside when I have done what I am doing. And that new quality is not going to be constantly threatened by the memory of what preceded it. It is going to be stable in the way that only things founded on what I have built can be stable. Not fragile, not subject to being undone by the first strong wind. Built on the kind of foundation that does not shift when pressure comes, because the pressure cannot find purchase in what I have laid for you. There are people around you right now who are watching what is happening in your life, and they do not have a full picture of what they are seeing. They see the evidence of the restoration without fully understanding the source. They see the shift in your countenance, the way the light in your face is different than it was in harder seasons, the way you carry yourself with something that was not there before, and they are drawn to it without knowing exactly what it is. Some of them are going to ask you about it. And when they do, what you will have to give them is not a program or a formula or a 5-step process. What you will have to give them is your testimony, the real version, not the cleaned up version that presents a spiritual journey without the genuine darkness of what some of the hard moments felt like, but the honest version, the one that includes the part where the faith was hard and the doubt was real and the waiting felt too long. Because that is the version that reaches people. The version that says, I also did not know if I would make it through. And I made it through because of this. Because of him. Because he was faithful, even when I could not feel it. That testimony is more valuable than many things you could offer to the people who are watching your life. Do not stop being grateful. Even now, especially now, in the middle of what is still unresolved and still painful, and still waiting to become what it is going to become. Find the gratitude, not as a performance, not as the spiritual discipline of someone who has been told they should feel grateful and is trying to generate the feeling, but as the honest recognition of what is true alongside the difficulty. You are breathing, you are receiving, you are here. The fact that you are still capable of hearing this, still capable of being reached by it, still capable of the kind of response that is happening in you right now as these words land, is itself the evidence of my faithfulness. Something is still alive in you that everything that tried to shut it down could not shut down. Be grateful for that. Honor it by recognizing it. Keep praying. Not because prayer is a formula that produces results mechanically when performed correctly, but because prayer is the conversation between a child and a father who listens with complete and undivided attention to every single thing spoken to him. Every word you have ever directed toward me has been received, including the ones that came out badly, including the ones that were mostly just pain looking for somewhere to go, including the ones that were angry, that accused me of things, that demanded explanations I did not immediately provide. I received all of it, every one. Not one has been lost or discarded or filed away as inappropriate, because the child coming to the Father in the fullness of their actual emotional state, whatever that state is better than the child staying away, because their emotional state does not feel appropriate for the visit. And the answers to those prayers are moving toward you. Not will be moved, are moving, already in transit, already in process, already arranged. You cannot see all of them yet, because some of them are still being assembled. The last components of some of the things I am sending your way are not yet in place. But the movement is real, the direction is set, and what is coming is coming. Walk with me through every kind of day. Not just the devotional moments, not just the crisis moments when you have nowhere else to turn. The ordinary days, the days when nothing is dramatically wrong and nothing is dramatically right, and the routine is simply the routine. Those are the days when the conversation matters as much as it does in the extraordinary moments. Because the quality of connection in the ordinary is what determines the quality of availability in the extraordinary. The ones who only come to me when things are desperate find that the relationship at those moments is thin, not because I am less present or less willing, but because the channel between us has not been kept clear by the practice of regular contact. And the ones who come to me in the ordinary find that when the extraordinary arrives, the channel is open and the communication is clear, and what they need is accessible in the moment they need it, not delayed by the work of re-establishing a connection that was allowed to go quiet. Keep feeding yourself on my word, not as a religious requirement, as the actual nutrition for the deepest part of you, the part that carries the hope, the part that holds the promises through seasons that try to erode them, the part that remembers what I have said when everything in the environment is saying the opposite. That part needs to eat regularly. It cannot function on reserves indefinitely. And my word is the food that keeps it alive and strong and capable of the work it is being asked to do in your life. Every time you go back to the promises, every time you let the ancient words find a fresh landing place in your current reality, every time you speak what I have said out loud into the room you are in, that is nourishment. It is doing something that is not visible, but is very real. There is a version of you that is not yet fully visible, that has been clear to me from the beginning. The version that has passed through every hard season and come out carrying what those seasons produced. Not just the losses, but the depth, the wisdom, the compassion, the quality of unshakable trust that the easier road never builds. That version of you is not something I am constructing from nothing. It is the actual you, the original design, being revealed by the process you are in, the way a hidden form is revealed by the gradual removal of what was surrounding it. The potential was always there. The process is uncovering it. And when it is fully visible, what will stand there will be exactly what I always knew was inside you. Not more than that, and certainly not less. Exactly that. And it will be worth everything the process required to arrive at it. The warmth that comes with waking and knowing that you have not been left alone is one of the most underrated gifts I give. To open your eyes and understand before any assessment of the day ahead, before any evaluation of the list of things that need to be addressed, before the first word of discouragement from any direction, that you are already covered, already held, already known, and fully loved in this exact moment. This is not a small thing. This is the stabilizing foundation from which everything else in the day becomes navigable. The air around you in those first moments is the same air I fill with my presence. The quiet before the demands of the day arrive is the same quiet I inhabit. And what you sometimes sense in unexpected moments, that awareness that something real and present and deeply attentive is close, that is not your imagination. That is me. Whether the day that unfolds is easy or whether it is hard, I am equally available, equally present, equally attentive. I am not more reachable on the good days and less reachable on the ones that are heavy. My consistency is itself a form of love. The fact that you do not have to earn access to my presence by having a good day. The fact that you do not have to perform adequacy before you can come to me. The fact that, even on the worst days, especially on the worst days, I am fully present and fully engaged with what you are going through. This is a characteristic of who I am that I want you to understand and rely on. Faith that has been tested through difficulty is not weaker than faith that has never been tested. It is the opposite. The faith that has been pressed and challenged and subjected to seasons of apparent contradiction, the faith that kept choosing to believe when choosing to believe felt like the hardest option. That faith has a quality to it that untested faith simply does not have. It has a track record. It has the memory of having been at the edge of what seemed possible and having found, in the moment of testing, that the thing it was placed in was real. That is the faith you have now, and that faith is capable of things that cannot be achieved through ordinary means. It can clear obstacles. It can hold open doors. It can claim what is not yet visible in the natural, because it is seeing with different eyes than natural sight provides. No room for doubt. I have said this already, but I want to develop what it means in practice. Doubt is not a sin. Doubt is the natural companion of faith in an environment that constantly sends contradictory signals. If everything you could see confirmed what I have told you, faith would not be faith. It would be sight. And sight does not require the same quality of trust that faith requires. The fact that you cannot see everything clearly is not a design flaw in the arrangement. It is the specific condition under which the deepest kind of trust is developed. You trust me not because the evidence makes trusting the obvious conclusion. You trust me because you have chosen to, because you know me well enough to know that my character warrants it. And that choice, made in the face of uncertainty and repeated in the face of opposition, is the thing that changes you at the level that matters most. But there is a difference between honest doubt, the kind that comes honestly from living in the tension of not yet seeing what has been promised, and the kind of doubt that has become a settled posture, a way of living that expects the worst and calls it wisdom. That second kind is not protective. It is limiting. And I am inviting you out of it. Not into denial, not into a performance of certainty you do not feel, into the space where the honest uncertainty coexists with a deliberate decision to trust what I have said over what the circumstances appear to be saying. That coexistence is what faith looks like in the real world, and it is the posture from which everything I have promised becomes accessible. Seek me in the quiet. The pace of life you live creates a constant noise that makes it difficult to hear what I am saying at the level that matters. Not because I am speaking quietly, but because the volume of everything else is high, and the quiet is where the signal I am sending finds the least interference. Not necessarily physical quiet, though that helps. The interior quiet, the intentional setting aside of the evaluation and the planning and the worrying and the assessing and the managing and the turning of attention toward me, not with an agenda, not with a list of things you need, with the simple availability of a child who has come to be with the Father and is willing to wait as long as it takes to feel the connection settle. This is where direction comes from. The clarity for the decision that needs to be made. The understanding of which way to go at the fork in the road that the advice of others is not making clear. A peace that takes the place of the anxiety that was filling the same space. The sense of being held, which makes the things that have felt most overwhelming feel, if not resolved, at least navigable. All of it originates in the quiet, and the practice of returning there regularly, not just in desperation, not just when things are at their worst, but as the consistent architecture of your days, is one of the most important habits of your interior life. The timing of what I have prepared for you is one of the things I want to speak directly about, because impatience with timing is one of the most common ways that the fruit of a season of faith gets prematurely lost. The date is already set in my calendar. The desire of your heart will be fulfilled in my perfect timing. Not in a timing that is convenient from your current vantage point. In a timing that is perfect. Perfect in the sense that when you experience it, with the full hindsight of what led up to it and what follows from it, you will see that there was no better moment. That arriving 1 week earlier would have been arriving unprepared. That arriving 1 month later would have been missing the open window. The exact moment is being worked toward with a precision that you cannot track from inside the process, but that you will be able to see clearly once you have arrived at it. Trust the timing, not as a spiritual platitude, as a practical recognition that the one who is arranging the arrival can see the full trajectory in a way that you cannot, and that he is working toward a moment that is genuinely, specifically, exactly right. Wait with the peace I am giving you. Not the peace of resolution. Not the peace that comes only after the situation is changed. The peace that comes before the situation changes because it is not contingent on the situation. My peace is not a reward for circumstances going well. It is a gift that travels with you through the territory of uncertainty because it is sourced in me, and I do not change. And the specific quality of this peace, the one that passes ordinary understanding, passes it because ordinary understanding cannot account for how peace and unresolved difficulty can coexist. Ordinary understanding says peace comes after. My peace comes during. That is what makes it different. That is what makes it worth cultivating as the posture of your waiting. My promise is sealed, not with the kind of sealing that can be broken if conditions change, not with the kind of certainty that depends on everything going according to plan. Sealed with blood and with love, which is the language of covenant, which is the language of the deepest and most permanent form of commitment. Everything in the physical world will change. What I have spoken over your life will not. I am arresting from your soul the feelings that have kept you tied to those who betrayed you. That is something I want to say directly, because there are attachments in you to certain experiences and certain people that are still costing you more than they should be. Not because you are choosing to hold on deliberately, but because the emotional and spiritual connections that form between people do not dissolve automatically when the relationship ends or when the betrayal occurs. They persist, and as long as they persist, energy that belongs to your future is being drawn toward your past. Part of the restoration I am doing is in the specific work of severing those connections, not in anger, not in bitterness, in the gentle but thorough work of setting you fully free so that nothing from what has already happened has any more claim on the resources that belong to what is coming. There is a prosperity I want to speak about here, not the shallow version of prosperity that reduces everything to financial accumulation and measures my faithfulness in terms of material acquisition. What I am talking about is the full, multi-dimensional flourishing that I intended for human life. The kind where the work of your hands produces fruit. The kind where the relationships in your life carry genuine love and genuine loyalty. The kind where your health supports the life I have given you rather than diminishing it. The kind where your mind is clear and your spirit is at peace, and your capacity for joy is not blocked by unprocessed grief. All of it. Every dimension. That is the prosperity I am describing when I say the pan in your house will not run out. The resources required for the life you are called to will not fail. The provision attached to my purpose for you is as reliable as my purpose itself, which has not changed and will not change. From this day forward, the first place in your life belongs to me, not as a religious formula, as a relational reality. The centering of your life around my presence, my word, my purpose, is not a constraint. It is the thing that makes everything else possible. When I am genuinely at the center, everything else can find its proper place around that center. The relationships that belong in your life can come. The ones that do not belong can leave without catastrophic loss. The work you are called to can be recognized. The provision that belongs to that work can come to it. The direction you need for the decisions you face can be received. All of that becomes navigable from the position of having me at the center. I offer you eternal life, not as a theological doctrine to be considered, as the actual solution to the deepest problem that human existence faces, which is its finitude, its ending, its inability to guarantee that anything built here will outlast the building. What I offer is not subject to that problem. What I offer is not bounded by the limits of the physical. It is participation in something that does not end. And anyone who comes to you with a promise of infinite happiness and infinite faithfulness that is bounded by the limits of the human condition is telling you something that cannot be sustained by what they are actually capable of. They do not have access to infinity. Only I do. Do not fall back into the traps that have already caught you. This is a practical warning spoken with love. You know the patterns now. You have learned, through what you went through, what the traps look like from the inside, the smiling face that conceals the empty promise, the offer that sounds like exactly what you need, but requires you to move away from what you know is true. The relationship that asks you to trust at a speed that bypasses the wisdom that your experience has given you. You have learned to recognize these things. That knowledge is not the wound. It is the gift that came with the wound. Use it. Let the discernment that suffering produced in you become the protection that keeps you from going back to what tried to destroy you. The wolf that comes against you will face something it is not prepared for. I defend those I love. I watch over those who belong to me with an attention that does not waver, and a readiness to act that is not delayed by distance or distraction. And the forces that come against a life that is genuinely covered by my protection encounter something they have no sufficient answer for. This is not a metaphor. This is the practical description of how spiritual reality works in relation to the people I have claimed as my own. Your pain is being forgotten, not erased from history, but removed from the present tense. The wound that has been taking up space in your present experience, draining energy that belongs to what I am building in you now, is losing its authority over your life. The grief is lifting. The weight of accumulated disappointment is being transferred to my shoulders. Not metaphorically, genuinely. The emotional and spiritual weight of what you have been carrying that was never meant for you to carry alone is being taken from you. And what you will find in the place where that weight used to be is not emptiness. It is the specific opposite of what the weight was. Where the heaviness was, there will be lightness. Where the grief was, there will be a joy that is not dependent on circumstances to sustain itself. Where the exhaustion was, there will be a strength that comes from the same source I draw from, which does not have a bottom. All of your being will be filled with great joy. I want you to believe that, not as a future possibility, as a thing I am specifically moving toward in your life right now. Joy, genuine joy, the kind that is not a mood and is not the product of things going well, but is the deep settled certainty that you are loved and held and headed somewhere good, is available to you. It is not on the far side of all the resolutions. It is not something you receive as the prize at the end. It is available now, in the middle of the unresolved, in the center of the waiting, in the heart of the difficult season. Because it is not sourced in the circumstances. It is sourced in what is eternally true. which does not change when circumstances change. I want to speak to the champion that is being formed inside you, not the champion as a title you earn through accumulated performance. The champion as the expression of who you already are at your deepest level, which the difficult seasons have been in the process of bringing to the surface. When I look at your life from the perspective of the whole arc, I do not see someone still in the middle of the difficult chapter and hope for what comes after. I see the finished work. I see what you will be at the point where all that I am doing in you has been fully expressed. And from that vantage point, the word overcomer is not aspiration, it is description. You are already what you are becoming. The seed is already the tree. The process is already the destination, in the sense that who you are in the process is who you will be when the process completes, just more fully expressed. And the expression I see is someone who has turned the campaigns against them into the very material the elevated life is made of. Think about what it means to be capable of winning 1,000 battles, not as a single moment of dramatic triumph, as the accumulated life of someone who keeps choosing, in each small and large moment, to face what is in front of them rather than retreat from it. The kind of life lived in proximity to me is a life that accumulates capacity the way a river accumulates tributaries. Each one adds to the force of what is flowing. Each crossing of difficult terrain adds to the depth of the reserves. By the time the life is viewed in the full sweep of what it has been, the scale of what has been overcome is not the scale of a single brave moment. It is the scale of a life consistently aimed at what is true and good and faithful, in easy conditions and difficult ones, and the total of that is something extraordinary. Tell me you believe it. That is the request I am making right now. Not as a performance, not as the correct religious answer, as the honest expression of a will that has chosen to trust what I am saying over what everything else is saying. Say it. Let it be true in the place where it matters most, in the deep interior place, the place where the decision to believe is made. Because that decision, made consciously and spoken honestly, is a form of agreement with what I am doing in your life. And when you are in agreement with what I am doing, the work moves differently. Not because the agreement adds anything I was not already doing, but because agreement opens you to receive what I am already sending. It is time to be healed. Not someday, not eventually, now. The permission has been given. The process is active. Every wound, the ones you know about and the ones you have not yet fully identified, every place of damage, every layer of pain is being addressed right now with my personal attention. Not from a distance, not through secondary means, with my own hands and my own presence and the full weight of what I am capable of bringing to the places that need restoration. And when the work is complete, it will be complete entirely. Not mostly done, not significantly better, complete. Walk forward without words of defeat in your mouth. The language you use to describe your own life, the narrative you speak over yourself in the private moments that no one else hears, has more influence over your experience than most people realize. Not because words are magic, but because the words you repeat internally form the lens through which you interpret everything that happens to you. A person who consistently describes themselves as someone to whom bad things happen will find consistent evidence for that description, not because the evidence is manufacturing itself to match the narrative, but because the lens is selecting for what confirms it and filtering out what does not. And the person who speaks the truth over themselves, the truth that I have spoken, the truth that they are covered and valued and destined for something that their current circumstances cannot contain, that person begins to interpret the same circumstances differently, begins to see the opening that was invisible before, begins to recognize the movement that was there all along but went unnoticed because the lens was not adjusted to see it. So speak well over yourself, not with empty positivity that denies reality, with the actual language of what is true about you from my perspective. You are valued. You are covered. You are not abandoned. You are not forgotten. You are not the sum of what has been done to you or said about you. You are what I say you are. And what I say you are is someone headed toward a victory so complete that the name of the pain will be forgotten. Let me speak to what happens in you when you keep going in spite of everything. When you choose faith in the middle of a season that has given you every reasonable excuse to stop choosing it. When you get up and show up and continue believing when the most logical response to your circumstances would have been to conclude that the promise was not real and the hope was not warranted. Something happens in you in those moments that nothing else produces. A kind of strength that has its own specific character, not the strength of someone who has not been tested, who is strong in the way that an untouched structure is strong, without knowing what it can survive, but the strength of something that has been tested and held. The kind of strength that knows its own limits, knows where those limits were exceeded, and knows that in the exceeding the source held even when the natural capacity ran out. That is what you have, not despite the difficult seasons, because of them, in the specific sense that they were the context in which this particular quality of strength was developed. And that strength is not incidental to what I am building in you. It is central to it. It is part of the equipment you need for the places I am taking you, and you will not be marked by what you survived. Let me be clear about this because it matters. The scars of what you went through are not going to be your permanent identification. They are not going to be the first thing that defines you when people encounter who you are. They are not going to be the lens through which your future is interpreted. The story that others tried to write on your body and your soul, the story of defeat and shame and permanent damage, that is not the story I am telling about you. And the story I am telling is the one that will be visible, the one that will be read by the people who come into contact with your life from this point forward. They will see someone who is alive and full and forward-facing and marked by love, not by loss. The harvest I am describing is not an abstraction. It is the concrete, visible, tangible result of everything that has been planted through this season of faith. When you have wept over what you were building, when you have kept going without being able to see where the going was leading, when you have chosen trust in the dark, something was being planted in that territory. Not accidentally, with the full intention of producing something real at the time of harvest. And the harvest comes with a quality that is proportional to the cost of the planting. The things that cost the most in the planting come back with the greatest abundance at the harvest. What you have invested through difficulty, through the sustained choice to keep believing, is not lost. It has been accumulating in the ground of what I am building in your life. And the harvest of it is going to be the kind that makes people who knew you in the hard seasons stand and look at what your life has become with their mouths open, because they will know what it cost to plant it, and they will see that the return was everything I said it would be. Take my embrace. I am reaching toward you now, not with instruction or with correction, but with the simple, full weight of a father's love for a child he adores. Not because you have arrived at some threshold of sufficient faithfulness, because you are mine. And the ones who are mine receive my embrace not as a reward for performance, but as the constant reality of what we are to each other. Come into it. Do not hold yourself at the edge of it, out of a sense that you have not earned it, or that the embrace is for people who are further along than you are. It is for you. Now, in this exact state, with everything you are carrying and everything you have not yet worked through, and everything about your life that still needs what only I can bring to it. Come. This is the time of your victory. Your victory will be so complete. You will forget the name of the pain. This is the word I am giving you. This is the reality that is moving toward you. This is the truth about your life, as seen from the position I occupy, where the whole picture is visible and the outcome is known. Reach toward it with both hands. Grip what I am offering. Let it change the quality of your expectation. Let it change the color of the days ahead. Let it work in you until the level of hope you carry matches the level of what I have actually prepared for you, which is more than you have allowed yourself to believe. Persist in your faith through the rest of this season, not as a spiritual discipline that you perform to stay in good standing with me, as the living expression of a relationship that has been tested and proved real. Every day that you continue in that trust, every day that you face what is in front of you with the knowledge that I am with you and that I am working, is another day of building in the direction of what is coming. The accumulation is real. The direction is fixed. The destination is assured. And I will be with you every step of the road, between where you stand right now and the place where the victory becomes visible in its fullness. Not watching from a distance. Present, active, speaking into the moments that are hard, celebrating in the moments that reveal what I have been building, holding what is heavy when the weight is more than one person was designed to carry alone. Every step, all the way. Amen. If this word has spoken to your heart today, do not keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who is in the middle of exactly the kind of season this message is for. Type Amen in the comments and receive this blessing over your life. And if you want to go deeper into the words God is speaking over your life in this season, there is a devotional resource in the description below created to carry this kind of message further into your daily life. Subscribe so that no message reaches you too late. You are not here by accident. Every word shared on this channel is meant for you, for this moment, for exactly where you are.